Hello everybody, welcome back to Watercolor Wednesday. This is Kendra Krebs, guest artist for the week, and I am bringing you this very cute mountain scene with our little lamb here. And the stamps I'm going to be using, this is only 4 stamps, can you believe it? And those are in I wanted to use primarily the Bible journaling sets because there seems to be a disconnect. People are categorizing the Bible journaling in one category and the traditional watercolor in another category. And the truth is that you can use these for either. So you can use your traditional watercolors in your Bible with or a journal or stationery or what have you, as long as you use the ground. And then you can use your Bible journaling for things like cards or, again, stationery, scrapbooking, any of that stuff that you would normally use your traditional watercolors for. But I wanted to make this really cute card using the Bible journaling sets, as well as, I'm using this little tree in the Bible foliage set, as well as the teeny tiny grass. And then I'm also using just this little lamb in the front with the ground. He has a little buddy back here, but we are not going to ink that, and we're also not going to ink the rocks in the front. Now you can if you want to, totally up to you. I am not going to. And then I'm also using this tree right here in the watercolor tree set 1, and I don't have the packaging here, so I'm using our beautiful watercolor catalog. But as you can see, there's a whole bunch of beautiful trees in here as well. So just check that out if you're interested. All products are down in the comment section, so be sure to check those out. So let's get started. I have my watercolor paper here. As you can see, I've reused my Post-it tape, recycle, reduce, reuse, right? So this can be reused. Don't waste it. You can use it a few times before you toss it away. So let's get going. I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to measure about an inch down from the top Post-it note. Right there is going to be an inch, and I'm going to make a very light line across. This doesn't have to be perfect because it's just our horizon line. Okay, we draw that because it gives us an indication of what's very, very far back in the background. And this horizon line kind of allows things like your trees to really stand up, and it gives you perspective about what's in the foreground, what's in the background, what's in the middle. And then with your pencil, you are also going to put just one little hill here, just kind of sketch that in very lightly. And then you'll put one hill here. Now, I'm not going to follow these lines exactly, but it gives me a good idea kind of where I want to put things in perspective or in reference to each other, okay? So we're going to start with our mountains, and this is really, really simple way to do it. I'm using dark blue, and make sure you check the comments for colors. And I'm going to use my brush. Dip once. Now, if your brush is really dry, you want to be sure to really open up your bristles before you use it. Otherwise, you're not going to get a consistent transfer of water onto your paper. So I'm going to set that kind of there. Dip once, wipe once, reshape just lightly. And I'm going to take that blue and I'm going to begin to shape this mountain. And I want a really sharp shape here. I don't want to give it a whole bunch of detail because this is really far back and I'm not going to see a lot of the detail from this distance. The mountains are going to look themselves very triangular. I'm going to take my brush and I'm just kind of dabbing this in. I want lighter areas and darker areas, and I don't want anything that's super straight lined. So I'll take my brush and just continue. Now I brought this mountain sort of in the front, so I'm going to put another one back further. And you can see I'm creating these mountains by using the negative. So the white is the mountain, and obviously the blue is the sky, but I'm creating it by coloring in the background as opposed to drawing a mountain. So I'm just taking my brush and dipping it in and just kind of dabbing. And again, we need a nice sharp line here. Just kind of moving that around. I'm going to go all the way up to the tape so I get a nice line there. Okay, now that I have my basic shapes in, I'm going to begin by taking my brush and drawing in some of the craters on the mountain. And I'm going to keep one side relatively light and one side is going to be darker. So I've decided that my left side will be darker and the right side will be a little bit lighter, but I do want to bring attention to this white line between the sky and the crevices that you're drawing in. You have to have that white border. If you don't have that white border, it's gonna all kind of come together and you're not gonna have mountains anymore. So you definitely wanna keep in mind that border at all times. You want that there at all times. Okay, just putting these crevices in. Some lighter, some darker. The darker ones kind of give you the feeling of depth. Deeper, darker. And then the lighter ones are maybe in the highlight or, you know, in the bright areas. Maybe they're not as dark or not as deep. Okay, I'm not going to spend too much time on the mountains because these are just supportive features. These are not the main event. Our main event is our little lamb, and we're going to put him in right now. I'm going to take my brown and just ink him, this little guy in the front. And if you get a little bit of his buddy in the background, don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. There's going to be so much going on in the background, you're not even going to see that. Make sure you get his legs in. And then I like to draw just a little bit of brown on the ground with a little bit of this green. Again, check the colors in the comments. Okay, and I'm going to stamp this little guy in about there. And we'll take our brush and, oh, you can see his little legs back there. That's okay. No big deal. I'm going to begin to pull out his shadows, and I want to do this sort of early in the project because I'm going to come back in and layer in more of the shading. And I want that bottom layer to be nice and dry before I do that. Of course, on his legs, he's going to have these darker legs. And on that tushy is going to be nice and shaded in. Under his tail is going to be shaded in. On his breast is going to be shaded in. And of course, on his belly. And I'm going to just kind of lightly feather some of that up. And we'll let that dry a little bit. Now I want to come back into my hills and bring in some color back there. So I'm going to grab that green, put it on my palette, and take that and begin to draw in my background hills. Same thing back here. And generally, the further back you go, the darker your hills will be. But this doesn't need to be too precise. I'm just going to be putting in a little bit of green here. And I want to take some of my brown. I like to differentiate the hills a little bit. So I'm going to take a little bit of the brown and mix it with the green. and put that back here, just so you can tell that they are not sort of in the same perspective line. And I'm going to take that green again and just bring it down. Same thing in the foreground. Here is the line, and I'm just going to bring that down and out just a touch. Okay, now that we have just our basic lines in, I can come back into my little lamb and add a little bit more shading with my palette color here. The brown, I'm gonna bring in the back and on his legs. And I want to connect in the colors, because if you look at it right now, it looks like blue, green, brown, right? And we want to kind of make connections where we can so that it all looks cohesive. So I'm going to take a little bit of this blue and a little bit of the brown and add this into his shadow. And you can see now my sky and my sheep, my little lamb, are beginning to connect a little bit more, as opposed to blue, green, brown. Now it's blue, green, blue, brown. And it just looks a little bit more put together when you've got those colors working. And this back leg is going to be darker on both sides. Nice and dark. As is his little ear here. That looks really blue. So I'm going to take a little bit of that off with a wet brush and add more brown. Don't worry about little things like that. It's no big deal. There's always something you can do. If you don't like it, just take a little bit of a wet brush or a paper towel and kind of move the color around a little bit. I have done that so many times where I'm like, I wasn't crazy about that. So I'll come back in and edit it a little bit. A little bit of blue there. Once again, a little bit blue for me. Gonna bring in some brown. See how easy that is? Just add a little bit of the brown and it makes it less bright. Now I'm just bringing in water to make the gradient from shading to white, because our little lamb is white. He just has some shadows on him. Maybe he's a little bit dirty from being outside. So we want to make sure the graduation is nice and it's not really harsh line. Okay. Now you can see he's standing in something because he doesn't have hooves, right? So let's give him some grass to stand in. I'm going to take that teeny tiny grass and move that down by his feet. Also going to put some up here to indicate that this is all close. Put a little bit up here. So you can see my original line is a little bit off, but that's okay. It did give me a nice starting point just so I could visualize where my images were going. I'm going to take my brush and we'll begin to pull that grass out of the lines. You can see I really pull this grass out. I like a nice long wild grass, but that's preference. It's up to you how long or big you want your grass. And I'm going to take a little bit of that brown from my palette and pull it in right underneath that grass. I like that sort of mix with the green and the brown. It's really rustic looking. And he's also going to have a nice shadow underneath his body down here. So we want to make sure we have this darkened up a little bit down there. Okay. And now I can come back in and just add his little eye back in and his little nose. You know, I can use this detail tip if I want to add in some darker shading that maybe I lost when I was using the water. So I can put that in. And if you feel like you made too many lines or those lines are really dense or concentrated, you can bring the water back in and just soften it up a little bit. I'm going to bring just a touch more brown into his ear and darken that. This is just nitpicky details. It's up to you if you want to, you know, go that far and put that many layers of shadowing in. I love the look of it, so I like to do it, but it's totally up to you. Now I'm going to take this really teeny tree from the Bible journaling set. This is not the one from the traditional watercolor set. This is the teeny tiny one from the Bible journaling foliage, I believe it's called. And I'm going to take and color just about a third of that. And I'm going to stamp those into the background, just way, way, way far in the back. And these don't need to be perfect or, you know, even in designated spots. I mean, they can kind of go wherever. We just want them in the background somewhere. Put a few of those in. And then this one's the one from the traditional watercolor tree set. And we'll give this one a brown trunk. Put some of those in. Again, ink this. And if you want to mask him in, you can. It's up to you. Sometimes I'll just kind of be careful and put some trees just kind of around. And then I can take my brush and begin to pull the color out of there. And if I feel like, oh, I wish I would have stamped more trees, I can just bring color from the palette and just dab those around. That'll make it look like there's more trees, even if there aren't. Just kind of like that. I'm going to dab the ones that I stamped in. And over here, just dab, dab, dab. I still want to leave white space. Make sure you do that. White space is a must. In the background, back here, all those little trees we put in. You can even put some little dabs if you want to make it look like there's some really far back ones. It's kind of fun too. Okay, now I'm going to put some water on my trunks. That's off the page. And I want to add in a shadow for each of these. Maybe one over there. And I'm going to take that green and a little bit of the blue. Little blue, little green, a little brown. Just kind of put it back in here, just a little bit. Once again, kind of bring in that blue into the image. Okay. And I'm going to leave this corner white. You don't have to cover every single corner or line or, you know, side. I'm going to leave that, and then I am going to come in and erase my lines. What do I always say about erasing lines? Make sure your paper is, let's all say it together, dry first. So make sure that it's dry, otherwise it's going to rip when you go to do this, which I've had happen to me, and I'm always really sad when it happens. So I want to save you the trouble of that by just reminding you every time. Okay, and if this little piece is bugging you where his little face is, you can just take a wet brush and either put a tree there, which is probably what I would most likely do, or you can take your brush and just kind of coax it out, make it move. And don't feel afraid to turn your paper and move it in the way that makes you feel comfortable. Okay, and then of course, sign your work, right? I'm going to sign my work and I will pull these off for you to see. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a like and a thumbs up. If you want to see future videos, of course, subscribe. If you're more interested in the Bible journaling, because I showed you the sets, make sure you check out bonniekrebs.biblejournaling on Instagram, and of course Art Impressions on Instagram. Yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this. Like, comment, let me know what you think. Let me know what you want to see. I'm a guest on this channel quite often, so if there is something you're dying to see, leave it in the comments. Maybe it will show up in the next video. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!